My lords, I'm incredibly honoured and pleased to bring you marvellous news. Through exploration of an astral rift, we have made contact with the Baol, and it appears to be during the time of their conflict with the Graner. I shall detail the encounter for you shortly, but first a brief overview of who the Baol are. The Baol were originally discovered quite by accident. A research team was documenting an ancient race known as the Graner. The Graner were a particularly unpleasant militaristic empire who focused on expansion through conflict. They existed approximately 7 million years ago, and it is from data crystals discovered at a Graner dig site that we first learn of the Baol and their conflict with the Graner. According to the Graner data and our own archaeological discoveries, the Baol were a plantoid hive mind, at least 10 million years old. They appear to have originated from a single planet and evolved from plant life native to that world. It would seem that the prehistoric Baol were all clones, and gradually developed the capacity for hive consciousness over millions of years in a slow and peaceful growth on their homeworld. Although clearly very alien to our own biology, the Baol were sentient and very capable. We know that they developed the ability to traverse the stars and settle other worlds, and they did this through remarkable integration of organic technology, building organic structures with materials that would rival the best our own engineers can produce. We also know that they were long-lived, surviving for many hundreds of Earth years. We also know that they occupied multiple worlds and had an empathic ability to communicate across vast distances. It is unclear precisely how messages were sent between individual Baol specimens, but there does not appear to be any distance that prevented communication. Sadly for the Baol, the Graner did not appreciate the majesty of their race, and although in many ways the Baol were advanced, it seems they did not have much in the way of defending themselves from a technologically advanced spacefaring civilization. Multiple examples of Graner cruelty and aggression have been identified. Upon first encountering the Baol, the Graner designated them worthy of their attention. The Baol's plentiful resources are referenced, but given the Graner methods of war, it seems acquiring resource was not the primary objective. There is plenty of evidence suggesting that although the Graner would occupy and enslave, they often just firebombed entire planets, the goal simply to decimate worlds. The Graner described the Baol as feeble and slow to react, and it seems any defense the Baol had was easily swept aside, back to the present and the exploration of the astral rift. During routine exploration of an astral rift, we found ourselves approximately 7 million years in the past, but we did not know it immediately at least. Dr. Watney reports on our meeting with the Baol. We arrived on a thriving planet. From its dense forests to the verdant plains, this landscape was once diverse and excellently maintained. A vibrant planet-wide garden. We identified a plantoid species that had erected extensive fortifications around semi-organic cities. Scans of the local star systems revealed a blockade of heavily equipped warships. There was no immediate active conflict, but it was quite clear to us that one was brewing. We had the options of attempting to contact the planet's inhabitants, or the fleet in orbit. And we chose to contact the plantoids, in the hope that they were who we thought they were. On the planet's surface, we encountered massive creatures whose bodies were formed by an intricate network of roots. One in particular spoke to us. It spoke with a deep earthly resonance in a language that we could not understand. The creature bade I held out my hand, and it offered me a seedling, which gently anchored itself into the skin on my hand. Its grasping roots were formed of a strange material that I believe extended to touch my nervous system. There was a moment of instantaneous recognition, thought and root aligned, and direct communication was established between me and the seedling. And it spoke to me. Halt, unidentified sapient. Please explain how you bypassed the blockade. Are you here to parley? We make preparations for a coming battle. Regrettably, your expedition may be in much more danger than you previously assessed. The seedling continued. We are the Baol, and you have landed on one of our outer colonies. We are under siege, and our resources diminish. To attempt diplomacy is useless. The aggressors mock us openly. They laugh at our attempts to communicate with them. They identified themselves as the Graner. We believe that their aim is not to conquer our worlds, but to destroy them. It seems that they know no mercy, and we would graciously accept any assistance that you can provide us. Dr. Watney, a proud botanist, an expert on the precursor race the Baol, instantly offered to help. The doctor immediately engaged in discussions with the Baol to determine a practical way that we could lend aid. It appeared that the Baol had attempted to defend themselves, but their military capabilities were quite limited. They could benefit from mechanical or genetic enhancement to improve their army's speed, strength, and resistance to incendiary weapons. But we also suggested the option to help them evade the Graner by obscuring their homeworld with a cloaking device. They may lose this colony, but at least the seat of their civilization may survive. The final option that we could offer was to preserve their seedlings. Although their civilization may be destroyed, we could reseed them in our own timeline. It was quickly decided that we should help the Baol species in any way we could, and as such we used our knowledge of gene tailoring technology to fortify the Baol species for their upcoming defensive war. With few options left to them, they reluctantly accepted the changes to their biology. The pacifistic Baol Empire, built on agriculture and ecosystem management, is now populated by a standing militia with tremendous physical strength. They are now more than prepared for land warfare. Shortly after we had completed the genetic transfer, the Graner decided that they had rattled the saber enough. They landed ground troops and attempted to assault the Baol position. Dr. Watney witnessed these events and describes them as follows. In the fading twilight of the alien world, the air was thick with an eerie tension. Baol and I stood side by side, watching the descent of the Graner landing craft. There was no time for us to evacuate post-genetic transfer. Whether the Graner had identified our presence, we do not know, but whatever the reason, they had decided to attack in significant force. They had forgone their normal doctrine of firebombing and chosen to land ground assault forces. Perhaps they wanted slaves. Perhaps they wanted us. We would soon find out. We had endowed much strength onto the Baol defenders. Marvellous creatures, it must be said. They had various defensive forms already, but the protectors would be key. They stood almost 4 times my height, pushing upwards almost 10 meters. Their bioluminescent tendrils casting an otherworldly glow across the landscape. The Graner descended onto the planet's surface, their landing craft creating violent shockwaves causing the native flora to recoil in response, and the advance of their troops began. They were clad in some form of battle armor and wielding incendiary weapons, capable of sending semi-liquid material many tens of meters into the air. The Graner began burning the flora around them, purely out of spite it would seem, and advanced towards our position. Little did they know the force that was about to come their way. The several thousand Graner ground forces had advanced well beyond the safety of their ships by this point. They were only a few hundred meters from the wall. With no verbal command given, nothing that I heard at least, great vines and roots began sprouting from the ground, binding onto the feet, ankles and legs of the assaulting Graner forces. With the precision and grace that only a hive mind can achieve, Baol artillery units opened fire. Beautiful flowers that had sprouted mere days before, then in one moment glowed with a beautiful bioluminescence, quickly became fire and rage as they spat some sort of energy or plasma towards the assaulting troopers. The energy quite literally dissolved the Graner. This artillery barrage was quickly followed up by waves of protectors sallying forth over the wall and charging the Graner directly, who at this point were beginning to panic. It would seem our genetic modification had certainly tweaked the Baol pacifistic nature. The assault was savage, brutal and swift. Words do not do it justice. It was over in mere moments. Imagine being rooted in place, your friends around you dying to plasma burns, when a 10-meter tall tree slams down upon you, pulverizing you into nothing more than a bloody mess. The Graner attempted to burn through the protectors, but the genetic upgrades had made them all but invulnerable to fire and flame. I wonder, have we done the right thing, or have we unleashed a new menace upon the galaxy? After the battle, we made to leave and return home back to our dimension. The Baol, however, offered us a defensive node out of gratitude, a leader among their protector class. It is essentially a specialized semi-autonomous creature, and according to the creature, it is called Oakenstalk. We of course questioned this Oakenstalk, for how can a hive mind produce an individual unit? It is most intriguing. The creature spoke with a slow deliberation. It would be a mistake to take it slumbering for a lack of intelligence. Specialized to defend the collective, the organism represents the pinnacle of generations of careful adaptation, with our genetic manipulation on top. Oakenstalk greets us grimly, but politely, intent on repaying the favor that we bestowed upon its hive. We asked it several questions, starting with its purpose. Oakenstalk replied by saying that this one was tasked with preparing the colony for defensive war. This involved managing limited resources while under siege, as well as the design and upkeep of the military fortifications. This one maintained steady population levels, despite the blockade. This one's work was deemed useful. We asked the creature how it felt about joining us. It responded by saying that this one did all it could for the Baol. In that role, there was no further room for growth, and when a living system fails to grow, it begins to die. In our dimension, perhaps there was opportunity for service, and thus hope for renewal. We asked the creature how it felt to be separated from its collective, and it responded by saying, limited, frustrating, exhilarating. The sensation was unlike anything that this one had ever experienced. However, the sooner that it was integrated into the workings of our empire, the better. It is much more agreeable to work in the service of a greater entity after all. And the final question we asked was, how did you choose your name? The creature responded once more. One of your researchers that came through the astral rift provided this one with an artificially intelligent X-generation program, a query that was made based upon this one's qualities, and it returned, Oakenstalk. It feels suitable. However, I am noticing that other humans are starting to call me Thorin, and I do not understand the reference. And that, my lords, concludes our meeting with the historic precursor, the Baol. I wonder if we shall find and meet other ancient precursors in our exploration of the rifts. I wonder which ones you would like to find. Thanks for watching, folks. If you want to hear more stories about astral rift exploration, please click the video on screen now.